Hey everyone, and welcome back to my series of videos on fundraising in blockchain. This is a series of videos which is mainly aimed at developers and building teams within the blockchain space. How do you raise money in order to build out your project? That's the main point of this series. This particular video is looking at the part which I think is probably the most exciting, which is the public token sale. Sometimes, people would call these initial coin offerings, but that's only one particular method that you can use to have some sort of public sale. This is probably also one of the most sort of controversial and probably one of the most risky, shall we say, which is obviously why this is not legal advice, and I think you should search for legal advice before you conduct any sort of sale like this. Now, I have to give you this warning. Now, the US SEC has reiterated as of, say, last week or the week before with Gary Gensler. He said that the SEC basically considers all ICOs to be investment contracts. What that means is not necessarily that the token itself is an investment or a security, but the ICO process is basically a security or an investment contract. And that's the part that they take issue with. Naturally, that means that you should be registered, and there's a whole bunch of rules which you can follow. So you can go through the legal regulated process for doing an ICO in the right way with the SEC, but it seems like it's quite a bit of headache, and it's not something that I'm an expert in at all. So potentially you should just consider find legal professional legal advice. And if you're in the US, potentially you should ignore what I'm saying here because there's obviously quite a decent amount of risk in doing this in the US. Let me push on. Just to remind you, I have a way of describing the funding rounds in sort of three phases. The founder round, which is where you or the founders provide money to build a project. Grant money is also kind of part of this stage. It's very early. You then will take money potentially from investors. Of course, you can skip that, as a second round. And then as a third round, you have the public round where it's something like an ICO. And that's basically the contents, obviously, of this video. Now, why is it that you want to do a public round? Why not just stop at a private round? Well, of course, for you to be building a decentralized network or a decentralized application, it should be decentralized, which means that the control of the application or the network should be in the hands of the users to some extent. In order to do that, they need to have tokens. Giving users tokens one way or other is a way to kind of acquire users. It gets them interested in your product. I also think that builds loyalty within the product because they own a piece of it. And if you combine these together, then you will have network effects. Users come to your app or your network. They stay there because they like it. And because people are liking it and enjoying it and using it, then more users will come to it. And it's kind of like a self-reinforcing effect. And that's really, really important in order to continuously grow your network to have more users and become even more decentralized. Now, I have to, caution you here that whenever you go to do a public sale, you really should avoid things like, number go up or otherwise suggesting that the price of your tokens will go up. This is very, very bad from a legal point of view because, again, it suggests a security or an investment, which in pretty much every country, there are very strict rules around selling investments, and you generally can't promise that an investment will go up. It's just not something you can do. So whenever you're marketing a security, you would never say it will go up. There's almost like, the market may go up or down. You may lose money. And it's the same here for cryptocurrencies. Even if it's not a security, you still have to be aware that you can't promise returns and you can't promise that the number will go up. So you should avoid saying that. You should also avoid saying things like investor, investment, investing, etc. Anything which kind of suggests that, just don't do it. The other thing here is, just keep this in mind, I could probably mention this in a later slide, is don't make your public price so much higher than the private price, because people who are in the private round will be greatly encouraged to dump their tokens, to sell them, and basically to depress the price. So that is just basically bad for everyone. If a new user comes in and the price is incredibly high, then they're not going to be getting a great deal. And if the price just basically plummets from the open, then I think you're doing a huge disservice to your users, and it doesn't really feel like it's within the spirit of this blockchain ecosystem, shall we say. What are the different strategies that you can use for dispersing your tokens? Now, you can have something which is like a sale or a non-sale. What do we have? The non-sales, airdrops, lock drops, and lastly, something which may not be so well known, which is the liquidity bootstrap done by the Hydra team, who are in the Polkadot ecosystem. These other ones that are airdrop is obviously well known. Lock drop is a little bit more esoteric. You don't actually sell any tokens. You only basically lock them up in order to get new tokens out on the other side. They're quite cool. I don't know if I like them. From a personal point of view, I'm kind of debating as to whether I like them or not. So I'm going to be a little bit more biased towards the sales aspect, which I just happen to prefer. So a public token sale, obviously, I think everyone knows about ICOs, IDOs, which is where it's a DEX offering. They don't have the greatest reputation right now. I think they could be good, and I don't think there's any sort of fundamental reason that an IDO should be bad. It's just that historically, ones that have been done have just had like the wrong mechanics and just haven't really been the best. IEOs, which is where you just launch it on a centralized exchange, again, they don't have the greatest reputation, and it's difficult for me to recommend that. One form of ICO that I do like, that was the NFT ICO that Remark did. I'm going to do a very, very brief overview of this in a later slide, but I did an entire video on Remark. I own some of these tokens, just FYI. I'm not telling you to buy them, of course. I'm just saying that I own them. And lastly, the DICO, which I think is something that Vitalik came up with and would allow you to be decentralized from day one or pretty close, at least at the point of doing the ICO. Those are really cool, at least in the way that he's proposed them. And I don't know if any team have done that. And that might be a way to get around the securities problem, by the fact that it wouldn't be just one team that controls things at that point. So something to consider. I'm not an expert there, but I think it's something that's worth looking into. So what are the considerations? I appreciate there's a lot of text here on this slide and it may be a little bit boring, but I think this is really useful information, and it's something you should keep in mind when you're going through a public sale. Get the lawyers that you're in contact with to check your white paper. They should apply for regulator approval. So like in Switzerland, they would write a letter to FINMA and basically ask for approval. And then FINMA say, okay, yeah, sure. Or they say no. It's part of like the standard process. That's just kind of how it works. Obviously in the US, I've said, ICOs are considered securities. So you could register as a security and go through all of the hoops there to make it work. And I think there is one team who have done that. I forget the name. It's like Block something. What's the guy's name? I forget the guy's name. But there is a team that have done it. So it is possible. It's just not particularly common, and potentially it's quite a bit of hassle. Platform. So do you self-host or do you outsource? I think self-hosting is the way to go. More on that later. I really strongly suggest not using CoinList, and you really have to do KYC. I know that maybe doesn't fit with like the principles of decentralization, etc. But in this day and age, it's something that you kind of have to do, especially if you want to do banking. On price setting, I think is worth, don't just set a single price. I know that you can, and you can limit the sale size like as on CoinList. I don't think that's the right way to go. I think you should probably have a dynamic price, as we saw with the Polkadot ICO. You should also consider lockups. So yes, people may buy your tokens, but you should also say they may not be available on day one, but you could potentially release them slowly over time. I think this is one of the big things that would help to increase accountability for ICOs if the builders themselves had a lockup on their tokens, and the people who purchase the tokens also have some sort of lockup, meaning that they can't dump. So it works both ways, and I think that would it'd be something that would help. ICOs, as much as I like them, I can also recognize that a lot of them have been failures. Some of them have been scams, and some of them have had like bad token dynamics. And I think this sort of immaturity is something that just needs to be tackled and something that can be improved on. So while in spirit ICOs are great, they have had problems. Let me push on here. So self-hosting versus outsourcing. I really think that self-hosting is the way to go. You obviously will need some sort of audit of the security of the platform that you have. You will almost certainly outsource KYC. You might as well, because get it just to professionals like on Fido. You will probably have to block countries. You will definitely have to block countries. It's just the way things are. If you want to try to bank the crypto, they will want to know, where did the money come from? They will ask you, did the money come from anyone in Iran or North Korea? If so, they probably won't want to accept the money. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. Likewise for US and China, it's slightly different reasons. It's more around China obviously has some sort of negative sentiment towards token sales. So generally the advice is just you have to block China, and US is obviously because of the securities laws and the considerations around that. So generally you have to block the US as well. I'm not saying that that's fair, nor necessarily the best way, nor like the way that it should be, but it is the way it is, and that's kind of the bottom line and the reality of the world right now. DDoS protection is also something else that you should look into for your token sale. You could probably do that through Cloudflare. Yes, this is a bit of a challenge to set up a platform yourself, but I'm pretty sure good devs will be able to figure it out. Outsourcing the ICO to another provider, it's hard to recommend anyone here because I don't know of anyone who's doing it. Bitcoin Swiss used to provide a service. I don't think they do it any longer. Coinless, they have a single price, they have a limited sale size. There's a queuing mechanism, which is a real pain in the ass, so you could be waiting like an hour or more to get into the sale period, and then when you're in the sale period, it's like a lottery ticket system where you have like a random number, and if you're lucky, maybe you get to purchase right away, or you have to wait further. And just the user experience is so Polkadot was really cool in the sense that they have this kind of complicated spend all second price Dutch auction. So what did they have? So this line here in the top is a theoretical line where the price would decrease over time versus the amount of real funds, which was in ETH, contributed over time. And there was some model where whenever the amount of ETH was high enough, it would set this final price, basically whenever these two lines meet. And that would give away the all of the tokens that were available, which was 50% of the Genesis block. And then at that point, the price would be fixed. So the price is dynamic. You don't know what it is. And as many people as they wish could participate. So it's kind of like almost like the opposite of what CoinList do. And this was a really cool mechanism. I think all of the code is public, so you could essentially kind of copy what they've done. And even if you don't think this is like the right one for your team, I think it's worth exploring and understanding what they've done and kind of knowing how it works. I think it was a really cool mechanism. Another one that I really like, obviously, is Remark. I did an entire video about the Remark app. Obviously, I do hold tokens in Polkadot and I do hold in Remark, as I've said. Not telling you to buy them, obviously. So what Remark did is they sold NFTs, which are the eggs, and later on at some point you will get normal fungible tokens. I don't think those fungible tokens exist yet, but it should be very soon. And down in the bottom of the slide, they have some complicated formula for working out, how many tokens will you get per NFT. So I think this is another really cool mechanism. If you're about to launch a product and you want to do some sort of ICO and you don't know of a nice way to do it, then maybe consider copying this method. I think it could work pretty well. It's cool. that's more or less everything I wanted to say on ICOs. It isn't everything. I can't cover everything, obviously, within a single video, but I wanted to kind of round out my series on fundraising to give you some pointers about what are some of the, I don't want to say like what's the right direction to take, but what I think is a better direction to take versus a less good direction to take. That's my thoughts summed up. I also run this community called Polkadot Market, where we talk about the market around Polkadot. Yes, we do talk about token prices. We're not saying, whether you should buy or sell, but we like to talk about what projects are coming out on Polkadot, which ones are going to be released. We talked about the crowd loans and PLOs, and we'll probably talk about ICOs as they come up for the Polkadot ecosystem. We have a Discord where you can chat in real time, and then we have a Reddit as well, which has been around for, it's actually been just over 4 years now, which is really cool. So that's a really cool milestone, and I actually missed that, unfortunately. But back on the 29th of July was our 4-year mark. We now have just over 6,000 members, actually. I think it's like 6,200 or something. Anyway, so this community exists, and you are definitely welcome to come find us and to join, to come and speak to us on Discord or on Reddit, and otherwise to participate. If you like this video, obviously send a like, click subscribe if you enjoy it and you want to see more videos from me. But otherwise, come and join us. I think more so in Discord. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video. Thanks.